subscribe. You heard?
Listen, today's conversation is long overdue. Intellectual class with two brilliant minds that are different perspectives about the Black agenda. On one side, we got Dave Anderson. On the other side, we got Frank Zanu.
Yes.
Let me start here with Dave. Can you explain?
All right, what's good, y'all? It's JCTV. Tapping it again with another one. Now, this one is a pretty good debate. It's been going around for a little while. I think it's been out for about a week or so. I haven't seen the whole thing. I started watching it 2 days ago, and I was like, this seems real interesting. So I was like, let me get into it and see what's up. But this is for the channel is called the Daily Wrap-Up Crew. And they're about to introduce the two individuals. I've seen the guy, because it's an African guy and there's a guy from America, a black man from America. I've seen the black man from America before. It was on a panel with some women, and I liked the way he spoke. But they're basically going to be talking about culture and what culture is. I believe the African guy said that black Americans do not have culture, which is something I tend to lean towards. And of course, the other guy, he's going to be fighting for the culture. And before this starts, before they get into it and introduce the two people, what I want to do, I have pulled up right here on Chat GPT what culture means. I'm going to just say what culture means. I'm going to let it run. I think they're going to do their opening arguments, and then we can take it from there. But culture is the shared way of life of a group of people. It includes their beliefs, values, traditions, customs, language, food, clothing, art, music, and social behaviors. They are passed down from generation to generation. In short, culture shapes how people think, act, communicate, and live together. Now, the African dude said that black people don't have culture. Us black Americans being as emotional as we are, a lot of people went up in arms about it. And so now they're here to have this debate. So you hear what that said. It's basically a single way of living. It's not just dancing and how you dress. But let's get into it, man.
To the audience, who you are and why you are qualified to have this conversation.
I feel like my qualifications are I'm a foundational black American, 22-time best-selling author, radio broadcast professional, husband, father, and liver of the black experience for the past 5 decades. I don't think I need a doctorate, but I got a couple degrees.
Liver of the black experience.
It's all right. Aside from that, I've been living, baby. Okay, let's go.
And Frank, can you let the audience know who you are and why?
I'm sorry. Shout out my boy, but liver of the black experience to me is already like giving like victim, like liver of the black experience. Let me not judge. Let's go.
Are you qualified?
I already seen this part too, but
my
this is
name
a while
is
ago.
Frank Zanu, of course, from Benin Republic, West Africa, and I've lived in about 9 African countries. I was trained to be a journalist, so I've been a reporter for the Washington Times for 13 years. That allowed me to live in Asia, Europe, Africa. And so and now, of course, I live in the United States of America. So I have a link. It seems to be the only bridge who can compare what I know from where I came from and then seeing people that we're taking from that place now. So I can look at the two and be able to spell out the similarities and what the root cause of some of the problems are.
The first topic I want to get into is, how do you define culture? And under your definition, do Black Americans have a unique culture? Let me start here with Frank.
Well, I'm glad you used the word unique culture. So yes, I'm sure you all saw the episode, that got everybody on my case, except this gentleman who was the only one brave enough to say, well, look, before I cut him into pieces, let me give him a chance to come into the studio and explain, to the audience.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. People say, oh, you're from Benin. And I'll say, yes. And I say, what's Benin culture like? And then I freeze. Because there's nothing like a Benin culture. Or if you're from Ghana, or if you're from Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Liberia, there is no such thing. But if you say, oh, you are Yoruba, I said, yes. What is Yoruba culture like? Then he or she is able to start to talk about it. So there are similarities which I'm going to really explain and you can see it. So I'm first going to ask, he's been on my show. He's seen my thing. I do not put together that show, which I fund from my own pocket because I just want to say things to make people angry. No, it's because I really care. And sometimes I get frustrated about what I have seen from the continent where I come from and what I see here about my great grandfathers, uncles, sisters who were taken away. So African Americans would say, well, you're not one uncle. Yes, I know, but I'm walking past my cousin, my nieces every day. So what is in my head is what is in their head. And what I'm explaining is something that they must listen to when I say there is no such thing as African American culture. They're like, what do you mean? Well, culture for me is not dance, food, clothing. Those are not cultures. Culture is a worldview. The worldview is what drives people. Their relationship to wealth, to money, to community, to marriage, to family. It's the worldview they have. That's the foundation of a culture. And number two, there is no possibility for you to have a culture without having a language. So if you read
Now, okay, so basically what he's saying, basically what he's saying is if you don't have a shared worldview, and you don't have a shared same sense of values, morals, and principles, then that's not what culture is. And what growing up in a black community, what I seem to deem to think what culture was, what black culture was soul food, or was barbecuing, or hip hop, dance, and stuff like that. And I believe the arts and food is a part of culture, but like he said and like he stated, because I could tell you the truth, I had to look up what culture was, and this video inspired me to look it up, because I always had it in the back of my head what it was. I just never felt the need to really look it up, and now this video inspired me to, because I was like, that is an interesting take. And just based off what I read on what the definition is, and with him with a further breakdown, I also believe that as well. Yes, dance, food, and art is a part of culture to me. I think he's saying that on nothing to do with it, but I believe that's a part of culture, but I don't think that's what culture is. I think the main thing, what defines culture, and is the belief, is the worldview, like he stated, the belief in what is right and wrong, and what the worldview is. And once you have that, that's when you're able to create movement. So many black people talk about how they're not able to, how come black people can't stick together? How come we can't create a movement? Reason why you can't stick together, reason why you can't create a movement is because I was born in California. People in California black people in California is different than black people down south. Black people down south is different than black people up in New York. Black people in New York different than black people in the Midwest. You feel what I'm saying? But there is like a little underlining similarities, because we all started, majority of us started down south. So it's like certain foods that our great grandparents would make, passed down. So you could kind of say that, but overall though, it's not a unified worldview. It's not a unified vision of right and wrong. Because even on the West Coast, I'm from the IE. You feel me? Like San Bernardino County. And if you go to LA, people in LA be like, oh, them dudes from San Bernardino, them niggas from San Bernardino, they way different than us. They ain't our culture. They from somewhere else. You feel what I'm saying? And then even in LA, if you get to east side of LA and the west side of LA, East LA is supposed to be dirty, West LA is supposed to be better and bougie. And then you get even down to the blocks. Oh, I'm from 30s and he from 80s. Oh, we're totally different. So it's, and then they'll swear up and down that they're different. And then all this division is the reason why there can't be no culture. This is why culture can't be. This is what goes against it, because from the inception, black Americans from the inception was division. And I think overall in the world, everything was started through division, different little tribes. This has been a fairly new recent thing in the past couple hundred years, where everybody is trying to be one big melting pot, one world order. No, we were all separated in different tribes that had different beliefs and different views. You see what I'm saying? So it, like black people, we gotta stop being so emotional. Because when somebody says we don't have a culture, and then you automatically get defensive. Well, you guys copy the way we dress. You guys try to talk like us. Okay, that's a part of that's the side effect of a certain culture, but that's not all culture. That's not culture because we don't have one flag that we running under. We don't have one ideal where we running under. You feel me? We over here fighting between red and blue. We over here fighting between Muslim and Christian. But a culture, yes, you might practice. You might be a Muslim when you go home, or you might be a Christian when you go home. You might be agnostic when you go home. But culture overrides all of those petty little differences. You feel me? Just because I tie my left shoe first before I tie my right shoe doesn't mean that we can't coexist as a culture for the better good of the culture. You feel me? But in the black community, it's like, no, I tie my right shoe before I tie my left shoe. So therefore, me and you are different. Oh, you from the IE and I'm from LA, so we're different. Oh, you from Inglewood and I'm from Long Beach, so we different. And it's just division, and that's the reason why there's no culture, and that's the reason why that there's no movements. But let me shut up. Let me let this good brother speak.
Read most of the books written by brilliant African Americans. The first thing you see, the headline is, the traumatic thing about slavery is not merely changing your environment. The traumatic thing about slavery is not merely asking you to work long hours. The Russians had hard labor camps in Siberia. Many countries, Japanese had it, where people work and they die. The traumatic thing about slavery is one thing only, which everyone has written about. They took our language away. They took our culture away. They took our history and religion away. That is a traumatic thing about being a slave. Now, if they took those things away, how and when were they recovered?
That's a good question. They took the culture away, and so now what we have now is like a broken culture. It's a broken culture. It's a broken culture, and we're trying to pick it up from the we're trying to pick pieces up. But this is where honesty is better than honesty. The brutal honesty is better than a well-dressed lie that makes you feel good. If we can honestly, as Black Americans, say we have a broken culture, then we can go back to the drawing table, no feelings, no emotions in it, and be like, okay, what are we standing on as a people? What do we need as a people? What is going to be best for us as a people, for these little babies? What's going to be the best course of action? Now we can speak like that. But if we speaking like we already got a finished culture, when the culture is trash, whatever culture we have right now is trash. It's garbage. Whatever goes across that TV screen, and what rapper says something about something, and whatever is considered cool or whatever is considered trendy, that's which way our culture goes right now. There ain't no type of stand down. There ain't no type of values, morals, or principles. And you talk to black folks, they'll get mad at you. They'll get mad at you, ready to get down, ready to fight you, just because you speaking like this. But we got to get up out them feelings.
So I met a gentleman. I was attending a conference in Singapore, and I met this gentleman who was a Korean sociologist. So we started talking during coffee, and I said, oh, I lived in Korea for 2 years when I was reporting. And he said, oh, wow. And then we started talking. I don't remember how the conversation came about when he asked me. He said, so your country was colonized? I said, yes, and his country, Korea, was colonized by the Japanese for 49 years. And he said, what did you guys, meaning referring to people in Benin, what did you lose as a result of colonization? And I froze and I said, whoa, nobody has ever asked me that question. So I said, Prof, you tell me, and that will give me some idea. And he said, no, we're Koreans, we're colonized by the Japanese. So when they left, all we lost was time. We just went back being Koreans. And from that day.
That's amazing. And that right there is an amazing point. That's one thing that stuck out to me the first time when I heard this. It's a difference when like he just stated what the Korean man said, when the Japanese took over Korea and enslaved the Koreans, they didn't take their culture. They just used them strictly for work. Whatever they needed them to do, whatever they needed from them, they used them for that. But they didn't take their culture. They didn't strip them of their language. The Koreans still knew their history. You feel me? But what I'm gathering from what this guy's saying, excuse me for getting his name, but what I'm gathering is that he's saying in Africa it's been the same way, or they're attempting to do and doing the same thing that they did in America. Where in America with the slaves, now whether we were already here or we got shipped over here on boats, that's for another video. Maybe I'll get into that more in depth on what I feel about the situation based off my research, because we know none of us were there. All we got is different historical facts from back then, but that's neither here nor there whether we were here or not. But we wouldn't know because we were stripped of all of our history. But they stripped us of our history, stripped us of our native tongue, and then we're trying to grow from this culture. He's about to speak on something else right after this. I would rather him say it. He could say it better than me about how about in Africa how it's kind of the same as what happened in America.
I could tell clearly, what did we lose as a result of colonization in Africa? What did you lose as a result of slavery? If you don't fix that which you lost, you're not going to make any way forward. So in Africa, the countries that exist today were never there.
All right, here you go.
They forced a group of tribes that have their own distinct cultures.
He's about to explain it right now.
To become a country. So they've lost their distinct cultures, trying to have a culture as a collective, which is never going to happen. So for me, first and foremost, when I talk about culture, I'm talking about a worldview, meaning the collective have to have one reason they are here on earth. And that thing is what drives them. It's what makes them wage wars, conquer people, anything. You ask anybody, in 1884, it was the Irish journalist who finally found a word to describe the English man.
And then you think about that, and that's because, like he said, in Africa now, like you look at Nigeria, I know Yoruba is one of the tribes, but they got multiple other tribes. But what they did, and they have different tongues, and what the colonizers did was they just drew out on a map, oh, this is the new country, and you got this person from this culture, Yoruba, and then got the other ones. Forgive me, I'm not too familiar with the African tribes, but you got the other you got the other cultures that now they're all supposed to be one. They're all supposed to be Nigerians, and that's why he said when you ask, I think he said he's from Guinea. When people ask him what's the culture in Guinea, he looked at him like, I don't know. All he knows is his tribe's culture. But if you go in Nigeria and you ask a Yoruba if they're the same as the other tribe, they'll look at you like you crazy. The same way as if you go to South Central right now and you ask somebody from neighborhood 60s if they the same as someone from Inglewood families, they'll look at you like you're crazy. Whole time I'm looking at you like, y'all do, I've been to this hood's function and that hood's function. Y'all do the same thing. Y'all all do the same thing, but they'll swear up and down that they different. You feel me? And that's the only reason why when black people were actually doing the best was under Jim Crow. You know why? Because we were forced to. We're a whole bunch of different people that don't know where we came from, don't know no language, we don't know nothing. But because we had a common quote unquote enemy, we were forced to work with each other. And then that's why we were able to create so much good stuff. But now we're not forced to work with each other. So now we just gonna fight against each other. Same way in prison. You got dudes on the streets that will kill each other because they're from 10 blocks down. Then when they get in prison and they get outnumbered, they in that dorm is 10 brothers to 70 Mexicans. Now them people now they back to back locking. You feel what I'm saying? But it's like, bro, the reason why they're able to do that is because they're not forced to, or they're now forced to work together because they're on the streets. You see what I'm saying? Or not on the streets. They're forced to work together because they have no choice. And that's kind of like the same thing going back to the culture. That's why nobody could really get along, because they don't see it like that.
Which you call the manifest destiny. That exceptionalism of the Englishmen, now you call them Americans. The American exceptionalism is the American culture. That they believe that God put them on this earth to colonize and civilize others. And that's what drives them to go out there and try to give freedom and fight for freedom and do all the things they do. Now, good or bad, I'm not giving any value. You ask
as he can speak of what the American culture is, which is manifest destiny, conquering, That's what logical men do, good or bad. He's not saying it's good or he's not saying it's bad. It's what's real. That's what culture they decided to come under. These people from England, Ireland, Scotland, Germany, France that came into America and colonized America. The manifest destiny is what they decided to run under. That's what they was running under. That's what they was on. And that's what culture they created. They created that culture.
The Japanese will tell you their worldview. So their dance and food, and no, those are not. I came from a place where, as a young boy, I was given a worldview, and it guided me everywhere I went. So when you meet me outside my culture, you can tell from my behavior, he must come from a culture that believes in XYZ. So a culture becomes more pronounced when you are outside the group. As an individual, outside your group, people must be able to tell.
Okay. Dave, what is your rebuttal to that?
What Dave got to say?
It's not so much a rebuttal, it's a difference in philosophy, right? It is, and I think we got to thank Frank for even coming here, because I know for some people this would be very adversarial. Frank and I, we talk all the time. We're very, very good folk. And there's a couple of things that I got to push back on simply because they were not available to us. See, when Frank was born, he inherited a culture. We had to make one with what we had. Some of us, if I were to swab any one of you, you would find some Nigerian, you would find some Ghanaian. Like, we had to hodgepodge, not to mention, out of all of the places that Black people were forced into when we were slaves, 3% came to what we now consider the United States of America. And then we were bred over time. We were buck-broken over time. They would take our women and grape them out of respect for your channel. You know what I'm saying? Drop the G. And then on top of that, they had a split breast system. And the split breast system means that one breast would...
And there it goes right there, man. I'm trying to tell you. The more, I promise you, the more... the older and wiser I get, I can see the emotional, I can see logic versus emotion. Now, here he comes in, and instead of speaking to what Black American culture is, he speaks to the horrors that every Black person, and that's what pulls on the heartstrings. The horrors of every Black person they done heard since they was a little kid in kindergarten about what the big bad slave master did to us. And he automatically starts with the heartstring pulling. They had a split breast system where the white baby was on the right side, and the Black baby only could suck out the left titty. And then they used to feed us to alligators, and they used to tie one right leg to one horse and one left leg to one horse. This is where Levi's came from, and they would have the horses run in the opposite directions and just tear the man apart and all this other stuff. What does this have to do with culture, bro? What does this? You're really proving the point that we don't have a culture. It's a broken culture. It's not a complete culture. You're really proving that point, because you got to really come up with what do Black people stand for as a whole? What do Black people stand for as a whole? What do we stand on? It used to be Christian values. Now what do we stand on? Hip hop? Dancing? Soul food? Fried chicken? Barbecue ribs? Hot water cornbread? We don't even do Sunday dinners no more. We don't even go to church. Half niggas don't even go to church no more. Ain't no Sunday dinners. I'm just being real. So what is our culture? What are we standing on? What do we all believe in? What are we all willing to ride for? What are we all willing to die for? Outside of our own lives. Because that's really, to me, that's really the only time I see Black people come together is when it's for we fighting for our lives. Is it LeBron James? Is that our culture? Jumping high, going through the legs, doing dunks, running 100 yards, field goal return, the 100-yard dash. How fast we is in that? Come on, man. What's the culture, bro? But nah, he gonna keep pulling at your heartstrings.
Feed the white children of the slave master, and the other one would feed the black children that were going to be bought off and sold. We also have a situation where we had to face things that no other black person on the continent had to face. You know, taking our children and feeding them to alligators, lynching, Jim Crow, all of those things.
How do you know? That's what I'm saying. He's just talking. How do you know? How do you know? Especially, what's that dude? The Belgian guy that went to the Congo for the rubber, and then he used to cut off the hands, the Congolese people's hands. You know how many alligators they have over there? How you know he wasn't feeding them the alligators over there? How you know he wasn't feeding them the lions? How could you just say these things so so casually, like you just know these things? And even if we were the only ones that happened to, what does that have to do with our culture? You're saying that's our culture? That's what makes our culture? Us being victimized makes our culture? That's what you're saying? I rebuke that in the name of the Lord. I rebuke that. I don't know what our culture. All I can say is we have a broken culture. I'm not gonna say we have a culture. We have a broken culture. And I believe that once we come to that realization that we have a broken culture, we can all get back to the we can all get to the table and figure out how we're gonna build this culture up. How we're gonna build our culture up. What's our culture? What are we standing on? It don't matter if you Christian, no matter if you Muslim, no matter if you like red, no matter if you like blue. Whatever you do behind closed doors is what you do behind closed doors. But when we come outside on a united front, at least we on X, Y, and Z. This is our worldview of X, Y, Z. Come on, man.
And when you look at it, whether we choose to acknowledge it or not, the pulse of America runs through foundational black Americans. Who was the first person to die in the Revolutionary War?
So he said the pulse of America runs through black Americans. So are you saying that American culture is as black culture? Is that what you're saying? You about to say the first person to die in the Revolutionary War was a black person. What does that mean? Like, what are we talking about right now? That's what I'm saying. What are we talking about? We talking about accolades? Yes, we're afforded to this land. Yes, we did a lot for this land and this country. We did a lot for it. What are you talking about when it comes to black culture? That's specific for black foundational black Americans. What culture? What's our culture?
Crispus Attucks, black man, foundational black American, right? Harriet Tubman made the Underground Railroad and stopped it in Philadelphia. There are all of these things that have happened that make it who we are. Now, as a person who
that make us who we are. So that's what I'm saying. That's the point he was getting at. That makes us who we are. The first to die in war, that made us who we are. The Underground Railroad, that makes us who we are. What culture is it? And once again, so unless you're saying that our culture is just out of victimization and desperation, and that's the only time where we can stick together and do something is when we're being victimized, and it's out of desperation. This dude fought in a war. He first one to die in the war, yeah, because they threw his black ass on the front line. Like, yeah, they threw his black ass on the front line. Go, you gonna die first, boy. And then what? Harriet Tubman, under duress, she led some slaves to Philadelphia. That's under duress. All this stuff is under duress, man. That's what I'm saying. But that doesn't mean that's not culture. That just means what anybody would do and should do for survival. Going back to the prison thing, it's just for survival. That doesn't mean culture. That's not culture, bro.
Who was the first black youth president of an organization called the National Conference of Christians and Jews. To Frank's point, I do agree. You don't really see your culture until you're out of it. So I'm a raisin and buttermilk in a conversation where there's a bunch of white Christians and a bunch of Jewish people, and they're like, hey, we do this. I'm like, no, black people don't do that.
So what do black people do? I don't like his ponytail. His man bun is really getting me angry too. But I understand why he's so emotional. He's a man bun.
You know what I'm saying? From the way we walk, the way we talk, the way we eat, the way we move.
The way we walk, the way we talk, the way we eat, the way we move. I get that. That doesn't mean, like, going back to what the definition of culture is, that's not what culture is. That's not culture. That's a byproduct of people of people growing up in proximity to each other. And I think he says this later, the African dude says this later. I don't know if he said this or I heard this somewhere else, but it's like black people don't have culture. They don't have communities. They have neighborhoods. And yes, we all grew up in the same neighborhood. We gonna pick up on certain things. You feel me? Like you go to out west in LA, they're gonna dress a certain way. We're gonna talk a certain way. You go down south, they're gonna talk a certain way. They're gonna dress a certain way. You go Midwest, they're gonna talk a certain way, dress a certain way. Back east, they're gonna talk a certain way, dress a certain way. But there ain't no common goal. It's every man for himself. You feel me? There's no common goal. There's no culture.
To mention, you can't go anywhere on this earth without seeing our influence. The problem is, unlike any other black culture on the face of the planet, we have been colonized and monetized for profit by everyone, including the.
Okay, so colonization and monetization, it still doesn't. They're not colonizing or monetizing anything to do with what culture is. You got to think we're talking culture. We're not talking what we can produce. I know we're an extremely talented group of individuals. We got style, we got class, can sing, can rap, we can jazz, play instruments, anything we put our minds to, we can do it. We usually tend to do it better than the rest. Yes, we've been kissed by the God. You feel what I'm saying? But we don't have a culture. We have a broken culture right now, and that's the reason why we're being controlled, because we don't have a culture. That's the thing. This is the point, bro.
Koreans, K-pop ain't nothing but R&B. Let's call it what it is. And it's R&B under duress, because if you look at what happened with Megan Thee Stallion when she was dealing with those K-pop girls, she was like, oh, it's serious up in here. Because if they miss a step, they get what Joe Jackson gave Mike and them, but worse. There are all of these things that take place that no one wants to talk about. So no, we don't have a language because we weren't allowed to speak our language under penalty of death. When you talk about you can't come to the cookout and things of that nature, people forget. Picnic is an abbreviated slang term, which means you get to pick to lynch.
What does this have to do with black culture, man? It's just another victimization. It's just another I'm getting lost for words right now, but it's another thing of him talking about us being victimized. I refuse, as a black American, I refuse to accept that is our culture. Victimization. No, it ain't.
Postcards came from pictures that they used to take the back of and mail for people who couldn't see the lynching that they had.
I believe over all the years of the quote unquote, I believe there's only like a couple hundred lynchings. Now, one unjust lynching is one too many, but the way that they magnify certain things is insane to me, and it's fear mongering tactics because they want you to feel like the white man got his foot on your neck.
All of these things we survived, and the funny thing is, everyone's coming over here and benefiting from the fact that we put out the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. All of those things that started as the Black Liberation Movement, but then got shoehorned into civil rights because everybody wants to come off of our pain. It's still a part of who we are. American culture is black culture. The problem is not only
American culture is black. I can start agreeing with that. I believe American culture is black culture. Some of American culture is black culture, for real. Now, if you want to have that conversation, now we have some agreements because we fall right in line with whatever America's doing.
Not only did we have to create it, but everybody else got to monetize it. We don't own major forms of media, so the message that goes out to the world about foundational black Americans is very lopsided. It's very negative. Even Frank said to Nancy, he said, well, what is your culture? Twerking? Negating the fact that twerking started in Africa.
So what does that still mean, though? So what is our culture? You still haven't said what our culture is, bro. You just said us getting victimized. Someone died in the black man's first one to die in Revolutionary War. They used to eat us. They used to feed us to alligator. What's our culture, bro?
Mating rituals, things of that nature, tying of the hip, stop me when I go wrong. All of these things get put out as if that's who we are, and it's a very limited, very narrow-minded, very sore and very disingenuous snapshot of who we are, because we get put into killers, baby mamas, this and that and the other, and then When you look at how the media is weaponized, right? They'll take people throughout the diaspora and then put them on platforms and then bring them here. I'll give you an example. There's a show on CBS called Bob Hart's Abishola. And she said things that were much more incendiary than what Frank said. You know, oh, what is it? Gangbangers and baby mamas?
Crazy.
No. That energy is designed to keep us a certain way, and then we.
Okay, so you keep speaking about what stuff that we can't control. So what is our culture? What can we try and put out to the world? What is our culture, brother?
You talk about how the entertainment is weaponized because that's the message. That's our largest export. It always has been. Our talent and our ability to entertain, but not capitalize on said entertainment. You can't point to one major Black-owned record company. You can't point to one major Black-owned media outlet. You can't point to one major media or technological distribution center that is controlled, owned, and managed by foundational Black Americans. And so the message of foundational Black Americans that gets out is not our message. And
So
I completely
what does this have to
reject
do with
that.
our
If
culture?
that's what you.
What do you keep saying that? No one's arguing that. Nobody's arguing the fact of he who controls the media controls the minds of the people. Nobody's arguing the fact of they putting money in degenerates' pockets from that might be Black Americans to show us out to look like a certain way. Okay, cool. But what is our culture? That's get back to the point, bro. Like all this emotional shit.
You think the culture is. I am here to tell you that ain't my culture.
Okay,
it ain't
so
never
what's
been
the
my
culture?
It ain't been the
So what's the culture? Hopefully he answers it right now. So what's the culture?
culture of most of my brethren. Do we have some knuckleheads? Absolutely. Of course we do. But do we also have things like COINTELPRO we've still had to overcome? Do we have things like the 94 Biden-Clinton crime bill that we've had to overcome? And throughout history, I have yet to see anybody from any of those 54 countries come back for their brothers that they say that they love so much. I don't remember the warships
What does this have to
coming
do
to
with
get us.
our culture?
I don't. But what I do see is, oh, well, we're really good at educating. We take the opportunities and we're able to, go and take these American opportunities that you guys squander. Yeah, because you get an immigrant experience. You do not get the foundational Black American experience.
Okay, so he's been talking now for about 5-10 minutes. What does this still, I'm trying to get you guys to realize when it's emotional arguments versus logical arguments. African dude came with straight logic. He's talking about what happened, the reason why this happened, that happened, but he still can't say he has no culture. The African dude straight up said, you talking about New Guinea, I believe? I'm sorry, but I believe that's the country. He said, you talking about what's New Guinea's culture? I'll look at you, but I don't know what it is. But whatever his specific tribe is, what culture they have, he'll be able to sit there all day and give you a laundry list. So he's saying New Guinea has no culture. Black Americans have no culture. But if you ask somebody from a certain gang, he'll tell you their gang culture. Or you ask somebody from, or like the Geechee people, the Geechee folks off of over there in South Carolina. You get one of them old Geechees, they gonna be able to break down their culture, the culture of the Geechee people on those islands over there. They're gonna be able to break it down because it's like they know. Average Black American don't know nothing. We don't know, man. We literally have to see what's on TV. They'll tell you, oh, black people act like this, black people act like that. See what's around you, and because everybody's copying what a rapper's doing or what an actor is doing, what somebody's doing. That's how crazy they got us now. That's how wild they got us now. So everybody's copying somebody on TV. It's crazy, but he still has not explained what our culture is. I really want to know. As a Black American, I want to know. I'm waiting. Tell me something.
Experience. You get the same immigrant talk that the Russians get, and the Russians got a lot of nerve because if it wasn't for Alexander Pushkin, they'd still be speaking French. Alexander Pushkin created the Russian language. He was a Black man. So
what does this have to do with Black American culture?
When you talk about where we are and where we've been, you also have to talk about the mind screw, out of respect for your channel, that we have been put under. So no, we don't have an official language because we weren't allowed to have one, but still, if you look at AAVE, it's everywhere, and when it comes out of our mouth, it goes from the hood to the boardrooms to a billboard on Broadway or in Times Square. So we have culture, we have influence, and no, I'm not just talking about taking what's the word I'm looking for? Weeds and turning them into collard greens, or taking innards and turning them into chitterlings. I'm talking about the fact that we have persevered and we are the most copied individuals on the planet. Mm-hmm. So much so, if I'm wrong, please explain Akon to me. Please explain Burna Boy to me. They all do a variation of who we are. And I'm not just talking about music. I'm talking about the walk. I'm talking about the talk. I'm talking about the hairstyles. I'm talking about the innovation. Everything we do. We took a construction worker's boot and made it the hottest item for the past 40 years because everybody finds a way to profit off of what we create and then demonize us for creating it and then label us criminals, uneducated, unwilling. We don't care, but they don't talk about all the systemic things that have been set up and profited by people who want to keep us in a certain box. That doesn't mean we can't escape that box, but to act like we were not put under duress for what we had to put together as a culture when everybody else got to inherit it, and that includes Haitians, Jamaicans, everybody else got to be left alone so that they can develop. We didn't have that. And to this day, I have yet to meet one African, one Jamaican, one Caribbean, one black person anywhere who comes into this country and has automatically ingrained in them before they start going, my country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing, that they're afraid when the red and blue lights come on behind them when they're pulled over. And I get it, and I'm the son, brother, and nephew of cops.
Oh my! Everybody's afraid when a police officer lights come on. Come on, dude. All right, I'm gonna just keep it going.
That's why I say yes, we have a culture, but of course we don't have a language. But let's not be disingenuous and act like it doesn't matter, because it does. Because as foundational Black American goes, so goes everybody else in society.
So, Frank, let me ask you a question. If slavery erased our Black Americans' culture, what do you call what we built after slavery? What do you call that?
Well, you have to give me an example of what you mean by what we build. What are you referring to?
You tied culture back to African and something that you inherit, but you said that got erased during slavery. But we built something. Clearly, Black Americans have built throughout slavery and the culture that we have currently.
What I'm asking is, give me an example so I'll be able to respond to that particular thing.
Well, like things like gospel is something that we built after.
It's something. That's what I'm saying. It's something we built. No, we invented it. You feel me? May have invented it. Jazz, rock, stuff like that. We may have invented it, but the infrastructure of what gospel music is, the infrastructure of what jazz music is, the infrastructure of what rap music is, we didn't build that. We're the talent.
After slavery,
and that still isn't that's still not the gist of what culture is. We're not dying over hip hop. We're not ready to die and take over America over hip hop. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do it over gospel. We're not going to do it over jazz. We don't have a set values, morals, and principles that defines us. We don't.
Songs and
broken culture.
Music
the foods that we eat, that we consume.
Sure, songs and music exist in every society.
Right.
Is that not a part of culture?
No. Let me come to that. And first, let me make a little response to David's assertion that we were not allowed. So, in Benin or Ghana or Nigeria, you pick any of the 54 countries in Africa, right? Mm-hmm. If you had gone into a Yoruba tribe, which is now part of Nigeria, they would speak Yoruba. Now, when we were put together forcefully as countries, today, my nieces and nephews can't even speak my language properly. And the French and English, they can't even speak it properly. Because in one classroom, you have 36 kids who come from different tribes in that classroom. So they can only use English or French or Spanish or Portuguese to teach this myriad of tribes now who don't speak their language anymore. African Americans were not prevented from speaking their language. Mm-hmm. When the ship arrived, it was one from this tribe, that tribe, that tribe, that tribe. So automatically you can speak to each other. And when you don't speak your language for a while, like I've been outside Africa now going 40 years. If I meet any of my uncles and I start to try to speak my language, I'm interfered by English constantly. that I can't finish it. I can't make a coherent sentence in my own language because at school, you could not use that language because you are now a bucket of different languages. The same thing happened here. You were brought as a shipload of different languages. That
See how, and like I said, how we got here is that's up for debate. But you see how logic versus emotion. See how he logically, and when you logically think about things, he used a different. Because I've never thought about the African with the different tribes, and then them going to school and them all being meshed as one, and then whoever colonized the country, whether it's French, English, or Spanish, they're just teaching it. They're teaching the whole class all as one, whatever language the colonizer had. So in the same way, they're stripping them of their language, of their language. Like he said, like his nieces and nephews can't even fully speak it. But you can see what logic and emotion is. Logical, the African dude was able to take something that happens specifically with, is happening specifically with his people, and being able to make a parallel of what happened to Black Americans. See how it makes it inclusive. This is the reason why. This is the reason why for the problem. This is the poison in the problem. But what Mr. Man Bun did, Mr. Man Bun was like, no, we're the only ones that got brutalized. We're the only ones that went through chattel slavery. We're the only ones that got ate by alligators. So you can't even begin to think, and we're the only ones that got our language stripped from us. So you can't even begin to think how we feel. That's what he did is he's showing you the same thing is happening where he's at. It's the same thing that's happening, man. It's emotions versus logic. He got offended, and a lot of Black Americans will get offended just because he said they don't have no culture. I just ain't got no. I just don't move off and don't work off of feelings. So I'm able to see it for what it is.
That is why Creole and Patois were created. So you use the only word you can understand, a little bit of the colonizer or whoever is controlling you, and try to speak to someone who comes from Senegal. You don't know what he speaks. So over time, it becomes this hodgepodge of a language called Creole or Patois. In Sierra Leone, they have it. In Liberia, they have it. In Nigeria, they have the pidgin English because they can't speak to each other. So nobody prevented you. All you need is to not to use your language because there is no one there to speak to, and the next generation, it's gone. The Jews, however, it was Jews. They took them as Jews. Even though they went from country to country to country, they were lucky enough to keep talking to each other because they can understand each other. So they were able to retain the language. This is my starting point. It happened to us on the continent. So don't be fooled. You hear countries like Nigeria, Ghana. If you ask 5 Ghanaians, one from the Ashanti, one from the Ewe, the Ga, the Akwamu, and the northern region, and ask them, are you Ghanaians? Yes, we are Ghanaians. Look at our passport. Ask them, what is Ghanaian culture? And they'll start looking at each other. There is no such thing.
And that's the end of it. That's where I'm gonna end it. Because to me, there's no point in even continue this conversation, because that's open and shut, case closed. He's telling you what he's saying, which makes sense, is it goes down to the tribe. To the tribe, they have a certain culture. In these countries, when you look at Ghana, you look at Nigeria, there's a multiple different tribes. So there's not one whole culture in there. Americans, Black Americans, we have a whole bunch of people that share the same skin tone. But like I said, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. And that's why I honestly believe that I don't look at somebody that's going to be a fellow traveler through this life with me based off of their skin tone. I look at the content of their character, of their heart. That's the only way. That's who I find my tribe, is through their heart, how they act, how are they as a human. That's who I choose to. Those are the people that I choose to identify with. Because you can talk in circles about what may have happened, what happened, do we have culture, do we not have culture. The culture I'm on, the values, morals, and principles I'm on is just standing in integrity. And that's it. Just standing in integrity and doing unto others as you would have them doing to you. You feel what I'm saying? And that's all. that's it. If you always have it in the back of your head, how would I like to be treated in this situation, and you treat people with as such, if at least you start that as a barometer, then you gonna be alright with whatever decision you decide to make. But like I said, it is logic versus emotion. Man Bun is emotional. African, he's logical, and he's saying that Ghanaians don't have a culture, Nigerians don't have a culture, Black Americans don't have a culture. But there's subsets that may, where, like I said, in America you got the Geechees, where they'll have more of a culture. They'll have a culture, and I think maybe down south with the Creoles, they'll have more of a culture. But it all depends on how you look at it. But you go to once again, let me see their podcast name. The Daily Wrap Up Crew. Go to the Daily Wrap Up Crew. Check out the rest of this interview. I'm gonna probably check it out later, the rest of it later. But I just feel like I can already tell, because especially in debates, unless it's a real good debate, I could already tell, because this is a logical versus emotional debate, and I could already tell just based off their opening statements, I could already tell the way it's going to keep going. And I think there's some more interesting things later on the video, but I want you guys to tap in on their video, give them a like, a follow, a subscribe. But I'm out of here. Y'all stay up, I don't know what tomorrow brings, but I know what I bring for tomorrow. Y'all stay down for y'all crown, man.